Before I get started, let me ask each of you to think about these questions for a moment. Have you ever been passed up for promotion? Have you ever wondered how a coworker made it to the top? Or have you ever wondered how to navigate in the waters in your own company and or your team? Let me pause for a second for you to think about these questions. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, let me let you in on just a tiny little secret here. You're not alone. That's right. You are not alone. We have all been there and we've all wondered the same things. I'm confident in saying that if you look around on this virtual room, you would see many folks shaking their head yes to one, if not all, of those questions. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Emerton, and I am Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Corporate Social Responsibility here at Nutanix. If you're anything like me, I found myself throughout my career wondering and asking how people made it to the top, understanding their little tips and tricks, so to say, that really turn around those most challenging situations into a win has really been top of mind for quite some time. Now, please know I'm a visual person. So when I think about situations that arise, I think about it as more as a visual of driving down a windy road. So when I look in the road, I look at everything around me. I look at the traffic, the scenery, the people in my own vehicle, as well as the weather that's either right above me or coming my way. Knowing those weather patterns will determine how I react with my different driving skills. So in our session today, I'm going to share with you one of my personal stories on a challenge I faced in my career and how I was able to leverage my uniqueness and the people that surrounded me to get through it. I personally like to refer to this as making your own weather. In other words, how do you influence the atmosphere to make it more palatable for you? My hope is that you'll be able to walk away with a few tips and tricks to add to your arsenal as you continue your career journey as well. So let me start with a story. Now, like all stories, this started on a dark and spooky night. Not really, I'm just kidding. It actually started over some water cooler talk. So one day, while chatting with some peers, I'd heard that a coworker had a bad experience while presenting in front of some top execs. Of course, I felt bad for my peer, but when I heard more, I realized it was about one of those super hot topics that everyone in the office tries to avoid. So I understood right away how that could have happened. Once again, I felt really bad for the guy, but went on with the rest of my day without thinking about it again. Well, about a week later, I was in my one-on-one with my boss when he presented me with a great opportunity. And yes, you guessed it, he asked me to present the same data in front of top execs the following month. I was told, take the slides, replicate them, and go present. Right when he told me this, I paused. Wasn't this the presentation that failed before? And did I really want my name even associated with it? It was certainly a dilemma. But knowing in the end I had to take the assignment, I immediately started to dig and assess the situation. I got a hold of the presentation and reviewed it. I then figured out the audience and spoke to each of them on what had happened in the last session. I then spoke to several folks who were stakeholders, not necessarily in the room, but just to help understand the problem state in more detail. As I suspected, it was a complex issue. There was so much data and so many lenses to consider that coming up with a simple and concise way to talk to execs about it would certainly be a challenge. So at that point, I was really torn. I could really go down two different paths. I could do exactly what was done before and hope for the best, or I could create a new approach and address the problem statement a little differently. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I don't back away from a challenge, so I decided to take the different path, although I was encouraged on a regular basis to stick to the script. My logic was this. I figured if I was going to go face the firing squad, I was going to do it on my own terms. So leading up to the big day, I created the slides, I practiced my delivery, and when the time came, I went on into the meeting. After about 30 minutes of presenting and answering questions, the top dog in the room broke into a smile and said, "This is great. This is exactly what I was looking for, and I appreciate you doing this. Please come back next month with another update." When I walked out of that room, my peers were floored. What had just happened? How was that possible? How did Mary get past the discussion with little to no scars? Now, of course, I'd love to declare to each and every one of you that I am a genius, but that is certainly not the case that happened. What my peers didn't know is that I didn't view the situation as a one and done presentation. In fact, prior to attending the session, I'd been working in quite some time on creating my own weather patterns. I realized the value of relationships and partnerships and how they would ultimately create a path of success for not only myself, but others around me as well. So, what does it mean to make your own weather? What is that secret sauce? I would break it down into three specific areas of specific types of people that I gravitate towards. The first one are amplifiers. These are people who like what you do on a regular basis and they amplify what you achieve. Now, amplifiers don't always know what you're doing. They certainly don't have ESP. So, personally, I like to arm them with information. I include them in my goal setting publication process, which also means I include them in progress. Firing squad, I was going to do it on my own terms. So, leading up to the big day, I created the slides, I practiced my delivery, and when the time came, I went on into the meeting. After about 30 minutes of presenting and answering questions, the top dog in the room broke into a smile and said, "This is great. This is exactly what I was looking for, and I appreciate you doing this. Please come back next month with another update." When I walked out of that room, my peers were floored. What had just happened? How was that possible? How did Mary get past the discussion with little to no scars? Now, of course, I'd love to declare to each and every one of you that I am a genius, but that is certainly not the case that happened. What my peers didn't know is that I didn't view the situation as a one and done presentation. In fact, prior to attending the session, I'd been working in quite some time on creating my own weather patterns. I realized the value of relationships and partnerships and how they would ultimately create a path of success for not only myself, but others around me as well. So, what does it mean to make your own weather? What is that secret sauce? I would break it down into three specific areas of specific types of people that I gravitate towards. The first one are amplifiers. These are people who like what you do on a regular basis and they amplify what you achieve. Now, amplifiers don't always know what you're doing. They certainly don't have ESP. So, personally, I like to arm them with information. I include them in my goal setting publication process, which also means I include them in progress checks as well as when things are completed. One of my favorite sayings is say what you're going to do and do what you say. Let me say that one more time. Say what you're going to do and do what you say. Simply doing that will build a level of integrity and trust amongst anyone around you. The result of doing this is when I announce an accomplishment, these folks will then whether. What is that secret sauce? I would break it down into three specific areas of specific types of people that I gravitate towards. The first one are amplifiers. These are people who like what you do on a regular basis and they amplify what you achieve. Now, amplifiers don't always know what you're doing. They certainly don't have ESP. So, personally, I like to arm them with information. I include them in my goal setting publication process, which also means I include them in progress checks as well as when things are completed. One of my favorite sayings is say what you're going to do and do what you say. Let me say that one more time. Say what you're going to do and do what you say. Simply doing that will build a level of integrity and trust amongst anyone around you. The result of doing this is when I announce an accomplishment, these folks will then tell others about my accomplishments as well. Having someone talk positively about you and your accomplishments speaks volumes. The second type of person I like to surround myself with are allies. These are primarily peers and above that are willing to speak up and act when you're not in the room. So, what does an ally look like? Honestly, it can really be anyone, and the examples can vary. So, for example, when a topic is being discussed in a meeting and you're not present, an ally will speak and say, "I think Mary should be invited to this conversation. We should hear her voice on this topic." Another example of having an ally in the room Is having an advocate while promotions are even being discussed. That alone can really help swing the conversation. Now, remember, it's not always a one-way street. I would encourage you to think about how you are also showing up as an ally for others. For example, if you're in a meeting and you see someone is being cut off, that's a great opportunity for you to jump in and create some space for that individual. This is a great discussion, everyone, but Sally, did you have something you wanted to say? Or maybe even amplify and give credit to show your allyship. To reiterate, I think Sally had a great point when she said XYZ. Being an ally can also be a bit uncomfortable. At Nutanix, one of our culture principles is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And let me tell you, that's a tough one. To possibly call out a peer or to create space for another person can really lead to some uncomfortable situations. But in the end, it is the right thing to do, as well as sometimes that's what an ally is meant to do. I know I can spend hours with examples and talking about allyship, but in the end, I would simply state, the more you can help others and bring them up, then the same will very likely be reciprocated. The third and final person I like to surround myself with are mentors. A mentor is someone that likely has more experience than you and you look towards for advice. And I have to admit, I've had several mentors in my career. I've never really limited myself just to one. As my career has progressed, so has my need for different types of mentors. So if you're looking for a mentor, I would suggest you really take stock of what you're looking for. My most successful mentors were ones that I had specific goals with. For example, I need help with this specific problem or with this specific type of person or even a certain situation. I would also suggest that this person is not necessarily your manager or in your hierarchy. Having someone who can take a look from the outside can truly be empowering. So if we go back to my story, I can say that embracing these types of folks is one of the reasons how I walked out of that meeting unscathed. In that specific session, not only did I nail the content by understanding the problem statement and looking at it from a different lens, but I happened to have amplifiers and allies already in the room who really helped me understand the problem statement and the situation as well. They wanted me to succeed, so were more than willing to provide that insight. With that understanding, I was really able to tailor the presentation to address the situation head on. No fuss, no muss, so to say, just addressed it head on. The other thing that happened in that meeting is there were a few folks that I had very little exposure to. They'd seen the same topic presented the month before, which did not go well, and they were stunned to see how well it went this next time. I actually ended up meeting with them afterwards and continued to develop my network in terms of both amplifiers and allies. In essence, I won a few people over. Now, I'm sure a few of you are thinking, this is all cool, Mary, but how do we get there? So first off, let me remind you that this entire process, it's a journey. As with any journey, it's gonna take time, but it is never too late to start. So while on this journey, I would encourage you to think about a few things. The first one, who's who in your zoo? Who plays what role? Who are your amplifiers, your allies, your mentors? Do you have anyone in that category today? Now remember, some people may play multiple roles, which is awesome, but also really think about how you're arming them with information. How are you helping keep your amplifiers informed of successes so they can tell others? How are you also arming your allies with the latest of what you're working on so they know when to say something? How are you saying what you're doing and doing what you say? Another thing to consider is what role are you playing in someone else's zoo? Whether you know it or not, you are also working in someone else's atmosphere and breathing their air. How are you showing up to help them out? Are you an amplifier and talk about positive things others are doing? Or are you showing up as an ally by advocating and creating a space for another? The second thing to consider is what type of specific areas do you need to expand? Do you need more amplifiers, allies, or mentors? A word of advice from me to you, you can never have too many supporters, and I mean never. If someone wants to play a positive role in your atmosphere, let them. In addition, constantly be on the lookout look at on how you can expand your network to welcome new folks into your atmosphere. Same can be said in reverse. You can never have too many positive things to say about others. I mean, get in there. I truly believe the more positive energy we can create around us, the more everyone around us will be swept up together. My last and final point in this journey is more of a challenge for you. What is the next weather pattern you're going to create? As you assess your current driving scenario and take in all the elements around you, how is the weather affecting you? If it's positive, how do you stay in that world? If it needs work, what can you do to tweak the situation to make it a bit more palatable? As we wrap this up and you start to think about creating your own weather, let me give you one last parting word of advice. We are all unique. We will all approach this differently, and that uniqueness is what makes you successful. And I would encourage each and every person on this call and at this conference to embrace that uniqueness. Be authentic and stay true to yourself. I mean, think of it this way. What's sustainable? Don't worry about, I think they want, and instead embrace your own uniqueness and shine through. Thank you so much for your time. Please be safe, and most importantly, please be kind to yourself and others around you as we make our way through this unprecedented time in history. If you have any questions, please feel free to
Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I'm delighted to introduce Marie-Anne van Loon, President Director of Shell the Netherlands. Marie-Anne is going to be discussing Leave Your Comfort Zone, Jump and Enjoy the Heat. Over to you, Marie-Anne.
Thank you, Frances, and good afternoon, everyone. And it's a real honor for me to speak to you today. And I would like to take you in the next 10 minutes through the main choices in my career and what I personally learned from that. And please post questions you have for me in the chat box, because after my presentation, we will have about 10 minutes time to have a discussion together, which I'm really looking forward to. So let me introduce myself to you. I'm 55 years old and I'm Dutch. You might have guessed that from the accent. I studied chemical engineering in Eindhoven in the south of Holland a bit more than 30 years ago. And since graduation, I worked for Shell in several countries, in the Netherlands, in Australia, in Malaysia, and now back in the Netherlands. I met my husband in university, and he's also a process engineer and also works for Shell. So we are a so-called dual career couple, and I've worked our whole life together in Shell. We have 2 children. Our daughter Anouk is 24 and studying mechanical engineering, and our son Bas is 20 and studying chemical engineering. So I think we've done our best to take care of the next generation of technical professionals. My hobbies are playing music. So I love playing the tenor saxophone, but I also love taking big walks on the beach, gardening, and I'm part of a book club. So I also love reading. And you see here, Jump and Enjoy the Heat. And let me take you to the next slide to explain you a bit more about what I mean with that. I stole this sentence from Eleanor Roosevelt, and it really is telling the story of my career. Women are like tea bags. You never know how strong they are until they're put in hot water. And I really feel that that was true for me. I had to push myself, and I had to be pushed actually out of my comfort zone. But when I jumped into the hot water, I really enjoyed learning about where my energy is and what my skills are. So to tell you a bit more about that, I'll take you a bit through the choices I have taken in my career. As said, I studied chemical engineering in the south of Holland about 30 years ago, and actually moving to The Hague in the west of the Netherlands was already quite a step for me at that time. I started working and I was worried a lot about really wanting to have a family and be a mom, but also wanting to have a job that would interest me and excite me. How could I combine those two? And I worried a lot about that at the time. So when our daughter was born, I started to work part-time. That was something that was offered at that time by Shell as one of the first employers in the Netherlands. But it was a bit about finding your space in your job and how to make that all fit. So in the end, I moved jobs within Shell and that job fitted better with my part-time schedule. But it was a non-technical job, so it felt like quite a stretch to go early in my career outside of the technical arena and do a job as a change manager in a reorganization. So for me, that was my first jump point. Later on, I realized that non-technical job really gave me new skills, and these skills have really helped me throughout my career. Now, of course, we joined Shell because we wanted to have an international career. So we looked in the years after that to see where we could go internationally and looked at different locations. But sometimes they proved really difficult because they had limited baby or childcare facilities. We then got offered a job in the outback of Australia, in Karratha. But while there were good childcare facilities, there was no part-time work possible. My partner convinced me, however, that we would be managing our family together. This was not just my challenge or my problem. So why not try it and see how it goes? And if there would be a problem, we would solve it together. That was my next jump moment, because we did. We moved to Australia and I said, okay, I'm willing to try a full-time job with children and see how that goes. Coincidentally, my work permit and my paperwork got through first, and the receiving company, Woodside, really treated me from the start as the leading career lady. And that meant that we had a very nice career moves, both for my husband and me in that company. And I moved quickly up to the management team, which gave me the opportunity, together with some other female managers, to realize part-time working in Woodside. So later on, we could realize the opportunities for the next people coming after us to do work part-time. We then moved to Malaysia, and I became the regional manager for gas technology in Kuala Lumpur. That was balancing international travel together with my husband, and we made, I think, good arrangements with ourselves and with our bosses that while we were both working internationally, we could manage our family, and there would always be one of us at home being there with the kids at night. When we moved from Malaysia back to the Netherlands, because our eldest kid, Anouk, would go to high school, and we really wanted to go back to the Netherlands for that, I became the global technical manager for gas in Shell. So a large portfolio, and again, together with my husband, working international and managing a family. After quite some years doing that with great interest and enjoyment, I wanted to do something different. I was ready to do something non-technical and was looking for opportunities. And then I was offered the position to become the country chair lead for Shell in the Netherlands. Now, that is quite a different job. It's the ultimate matrix job in an organization. And it had two quite different challenges as part of the job responsibilities. One is that there was quite a lot of problems with the earthquakes in Groningen because of gas production. You might have heard that. And it really became a very difficult situation for our joint venture, NAM, and also for Shell, actually. And it needed big improvements. The other portfolio for the country chair was energy transition. Shell wanted to move ahead, especially in their headquarter country, the Netherlands, and was looking for someone to really explore how we could accelerate that. So both of these were, for me, seen as quite, complex issues, but I loved to really work on it, and I decided again to jump, both to take that position of country chair, which is completely different than doing the technical management before, but also within both these topics of improving the earthquake situation and being a leader in energy transition, jumping in, shaping that topic together with my team, using the mandate I got from the top to take this forward. And as said, I really learned a lot about where my personal energy is, and what I'm good in and what I'm maybe not so good in, but also really enjoyed how far I could go and what could be a success. Now, if I go to the next slide, and you see on the right-hand side 2 photographs that are special moments for me in my career. The top right-hand one is one where I'm on the stage together with the director of Greenpeace, actually offering me a handshake to be a partner in the energy transition. And in the midst is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And this was in my first year in role. So I was, I was quite impressed on, being there and the exposure you get, but also the importance of the agenda that you are carrying. And the bottom one is a really fun moment where I'm collecting a prestigious business award on behalf of the company. And this was one of these moments where the business asked me to go to Florence and be the recipient of that award. Marjan, can you buy yourself a nice dress and go there and represent the company, which of course, as a technologist, is also a special moment. I have put on the left-hand side the things that really worked for me in my career. And that is that life is offering opportunities to you regularly in your job, in your, in your private life. And while you have to get out of your comfort zone, you enjoy these new chances. And I think what's true for many of us is you will be amazed about what you can do and what you can achieve. So try these new jobs outside of your comfort zone. The second one, and I'm not sure if it's still possible for many of you, but you need to choose the right partner, because you need to have a partner that challenges you outside of your comfort zone, that encourages you to embrace these opportunities, but to also be supportive to you when you need that support. The next 2 points are about being very specific about what your priorities are, so the must-haves in your life, also your personal life, and the things that, are nice to have, but maybe not the most important ones. So focus on the things that you find important. For me, that was to have a challenging job, but also, to be there for my family, to be there with my family, living under the same roof together, and enjoy that, and to enjoy an international career. And maybe the nice to haves were things like, do you have a beautiful house, or do you have the promotion at the earliest opportunities? These were things I did not focus on that much, because I wanted to focus on the things that were important to me. And what is important to you is also good to show your own commitment, that you put your own energy, your own financial strength, your own commitment also on what you call your priorities. Now, this helped me to relax and enjoy my career journey, and I hope it's of use to you as well. Let me go to the last slide of my presentation, and that is something that I really feel passionate about, and that is the diversity and inclusion agenda of Shell. Because throughout my working life, I've been very close to this, and I really feel this has our senior management support, because we are a multinational company, and therefore we continuously discuss how each of us is different and how that can be a strength for us also in business. So it's really about how do we make the best out of each other's personalities, characters, skills, etc. This includes target setting on a business level. It includes active networks. And for example, for gender, we have various activities. So not just a gender network, but also activities for people just starting, graduates or onboarding, people that are combining family life with professional careers, but also more senior or older professionals that are looking at board memberships or next steps in the career. These networks and D&I focus is not only for gender, but also for LGBTI+, for people of color, people with disabilities. And at Shell, we completely realize that we might not yet do everything right, but we do actively work the D&I agenda across all levels of our company. So I can really say that Shell actively invites minorities to join our company, and we welcome you. And if you want to find more about this, you find the link on this slide at www.shell.com/diversity. And with that, I would like to hand over to Claire and see if you have any questions for me.
Thanks very much, Marianne. Really engaging presentation. Thank you. We do have a couple of minutes for Q&A. So one question has come in asking, how do you inspire and encourage your team members who report into you to make similarly bold moves in their career?
Yes, you do it, I think, by sharing your own story. I think often sharing what you learned might inspire others, like I tried to do with this presentation, and also share what you found difficult or where you think you might have made the wrong choices or waited too long. So I think sharing your story can be very inspirational, and a lot of working women don't realize how inspirational they are already, for example, for graduates or for their daughters or nieces. So share your story. I think in a team, it's important that if you work together and you try and inspire people, that you talk about, the strategy or the future or the light on the hill that you want to go to, and then leave people enormous freedom how they want to get there. The same is true in life. If people know what they want to get out of life, there are many roads to get there. And I think you just want to give people freedom to go there in the way that they feel fit, but encouragement to take the steps and to go on the road.
Thanks. There's quite a few questions coming in now. We just have time for one or two more. So Isma has a question asking you, what made you decide to join the Heat and made such bold moves in your career? Was there some kind of trigger, or is this just intrinsic in your personality?
No, I think to some extent, I think a lot, especially people with an engineering background, but maybe some other backgrounds have the same, they are curious about solving problems or solving complex issues. So they have this inherent curiosity of, what's happening there, or could this work? I think then making the step is something that you try little steps at the beginning of your career, and you find encouragement from the success of making these steps. And so for me, it was moving from the south of Holland to The Hague, which for my family was already felt like an international posting. But if you then feel that, you also belong there and it's enjoyable, then you get the courage to take the next step. So I think through your career, you build your self-confidence and your encouragement that doing these steps that feel threatening or exciting is something you might be successful at, or you will be successful at. So it's a matter also of learning curve and training. I often take the metaphor as well with music. As I said, I play the tenor sax, and if you start playing music at a young age and the first time you're on stage, you're very nervous and you shake all over. If you do it again, it's getting better. If you do it again and again and again, at some time you're not that nervous anymore. The same is for taking these steps in your life. Just start small, do them, and make them bigger.
That makes a lot of sense. Hasmik has a question asking you if you were to think back to the point in your career that you're just entering a leadership role, what were some of the main challenges you felt at that point in time and how you overcame them?
Yeah, being a team lead the first time, I really realized that came with, responsibilities for other people. It's not just, the planning of their work. It's really of their well-being and how they could function. But also if you had an eye for all the other conditions. So it came with a great sense of responsibility. What helped me is to look for peers that where I could learn from. So my first team leadership role was in an operational plant in the LNG plant in Karratha. And I had the luck that the HR manager, the personnel manager, was also a lady that just started. And we teamed up. And I taught her more about the technical side of the plant because she felt that she was, out of depth in the discussions about what was happening in operational management discussions, and she could really help me on the personnel side. So when I had questions, I went to her and I said, how do I do this? How do I tackle this? And she could help me, and we role played together. So find someone to team up with, and you can, share your learnings and get some inspiration from each other.
Thanks. I think we have just a minute for one last question. And this question, I can imagine, may resonate with many people at the event. So Katie's asking, when you chose to move out of your technical role, did you find yourself falling behind in some of the technical knowledge? And did that bother you?
No, I think that when you move out of your technical role, then I think we often underestimate how much we have learned already and how much more or less this intuition that you have from your both your studies and your working experience helps you in tackling the issue. So sometimes when you then get into technical discussions, it's not about knowing the details. It's about trusting your experience to ask the right questions and to just ask, the open questions that help technical teams as well to still solve their problems. If you move up in the company, it's not because you have more detailed knowledge. You have less and less detailed knowledge, but you have more and more experience. And I think trusting your experience in asking the questions of the experts always helps. And of course, if you go to non-technical roles, you have new things to learn and to be, I think, a bit curious about the new non-technical skills as well. In my role, I need to learn a lot about dealing with media, which is completely new to me. But there are experts in it, and they train me again. And so that's how you help each other.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time and sharing your personal insights and experience. Really appreciate it, Marianne. I see that we've reached the end of this session.
Very happy to do so, and I hope you all have a very enjoyable
Hello from cloudy London, and thank you for being here with me today. I am Mika Cusis. I work with NetApp as a senior education consultant, and I'm an executive coach who practices internally at NetApp and externally through my own coaching practice. I'm really excited to be sharing some of my interview findings and research on the topic of burnout syndrome. It's a subject that's very important to me, and it's why I got into coaching in the first place. I saw an alarming number of colleagues and friends, myself included, becoming statistics as they fell physically and mentally ill from burning out. I decided to study coaching and learn psychological insights and practical tools to help myself and people around me keep mentally fit, which is a daily fight, especially now during COVID-19. I'm quite concerned that one pandemic may lead to another as I see and hear stories of even more resilient individuals and entire teams teetering on the edge of being overwhelmed under the demands of the new normal. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't claim to have answers for how to prevent burnout. What I am is a coach who specializes in helping people develop resilience. And I do this by asking my coachees questions, often difficult ones, to bring patterns of behavior to light, and then to collaborate to create practical strategies for reaching their goals. The goal of my talk today can be described in 3 parts: to raise awareness of what burnout looks and feels like, to mitigate burnout symptoms, and to create an open dialogue about our needs at work. To accomplish this, I've had discussions with highly driven professionals from a range of industries and hierarchies who have experienced burnout and are at different stages of recovery or reintegration back into work. I've talked to sales managers who see their teams burning out due to the working structures introduced in response to the pandemic. I've spoken with HR managers who offer support before, during, and after burnout, and psychologists who are treating burnout syndrome. To organize this discussion of burnout, I use the GROW model as I would normally in a typical coaching session, and that is identifying your goal, your reality, your options, and your way forward. GROW is an effective framework that we can use with individuals and teams when talking about problems in a way that is oriented towards finding solutions. So what's your goal for being here today? What would you like to get out of this 20-minute session on mitigating burnout? Please share your answer in chat for the benefit of the group here today, and I will interact with it. We're feeling the strain of lots of different things right now, including huge disruption to our routines and to the services and support that usually help us cope. Despite this, we're still placing huge expectations on ourselves that we should be smashing it at work, at home, and with homeschooling. If you're like me, and far too many of us right now, you're a bit exhausted. So let's talk about our reality for a moment and about burnout symptoms, which are as real on a human scale as the events in the world around us. According to the Health and Safety Executive, so far in 2020, nearly 18 million workdays have been lost due to stress, depression, or anxiety here in the UK alone. I have to say, I wrote an essay based on the 2018-19 HSE statistics, which was reporting only a year ago 12.8 million workdays had been lost due to stress. I was so shocked to see that number go up by over 5 million more workdays lost this year, and the year isn't even over yet. It may not feel like the right time in the world to prioritize our own well-being. Given the economic state of countries, we could feel like we should be working more. And indeed we are. Researchers have found that since March, we're working an average of 50 minutes more per day, including additional time after hours and on weekends. That's 7 hours more per week. We're sending more emails per day, more Zoom, but women seem to be getting the short end of the stick. We're doing about 12 hours more chores per week, and we have 1 hour in uninterrupted work compared to men who have 3 hours. Women are also more likely to be laid off than men. Many people are working harder, but feeling less productive. Since COVID, focus on work-life balance has been replaced by a focus on work-life integration. For many of us, work and life have been mashed up and squeezed in to fit into one all-encompassing sphere called work life, which is so full that it's spilling over on the sides. When our source of stress is constant, the stress response continues after a particular danger has subsided. With chronic stress, those same life-saving responses in our bodies can suppress immune systems, digestive, sleep, and reproductive systems, which may cause them to stop working normally. One London psychologist I interviewed described how if the source of stress is constant for 3 months nonstop, it will generally lead to burnout. Feeling symptoms of burnout doesn't mean that we would be diagnosed with burnout syndrome. The ICD-11 section on problems related to employment or unemployment describes burnout syndrome as feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance, negativism, cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. Here are some of the signs of burnout that my respondents experienced. By being able to identify these signs, we'll be in a better position to offer support and seek the appropriate professional help. A sign that our capacity cup is starting to overflow is outbursts of anger, irritability, tears, panic attacks, lack of sleep, etc. When we see these signs at work, we know that we need to reduce the amount of things in our cup. Not attending these signs can make life much worse for ourselves and those around us and lead to burning out. Routine stress is the hardest type of stress to notice at first because the source of stress tends to be more constant than in cases of acute or traumatic stress, and the body gets no clear signal to return to normal functioning. Over time, continued strain on your body from routine stress may contribute to serious health problems, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and other illnesses, as well as mental health problems like depression, anxiety, and burnout. Let's walk through the stories of two people who experienced burnout, Diane and Jay. Burnout happened without Diane realizing it. Looking back, she can see that the signs were already there 3 or 4 years before she hit a wall. Diane had been exhausted for some time, but what working mother of small children isn't? She kept telling herself that she could handle her demanding job as a manager, even though she felt her values weren't being reflected by her organization anymore. She'd been telling her manager how she felt along the way, but she felt her manager wasn't listening, and over time, this made her question herself and her value in the organization. But she felt she couldn't stop working, so she ignored the gut feeling telling her to stop. She started to sleep 14 hours a day, and she realized she was feeling invisible, where she was once the heart of the team. Diane took 9 months off and has received good help from HR, who plugged her into their network of caring professionals. She's feeling much stronger now, but has recently decided it's best for her not to go back to her role. Something the company's HR rep said to her helped her to make the decision. She had said, "The organization isn't going to change. Your manager isn't going to change. What change can you make for yourself?" She'll look for a role with another company once she's ready. Jay found himself not being able to get out of bed in the morning. He'd been covering 2 sales districts for 8 months while his company interviewed for new team managers. He knew this was the case when he was hired, but it was harder in reality than he had ever thought it would be. He told himself, "I can handle it. I'm single. I have no excuses, no other demands on my time like my colleagues do." He grew to hate the dream job he'd been so excited to land just 8 months prior because he had no outlet, no personal time, and the relentless work was making him ill. Jay closed the quarter and took a holiday for a month, during which time he didn't look at his work laptop or phone. He made the decision that he would come back to the role if they hired the right resources, or else he would quit. They did hire support, and now he has a strong team. He's balancing the heavy demands of his role, but now during COVID, he's seeing his directs burning out. He's lost a couple of key team members already, and he's worried that the whole team might collapse. He's been there, and he knows how bad burning out is to go through, and he feels responsible for his team's well-being. Now, the way we talk to ourselves is very important. It's actually a key factor in how we experience our symptoms. We can see some of the thinking traps in what the respondents told themselves about their warning signs. We can see denial or wishful thinking, stubborn self-reliance, shoulds, catastrophic thinking like things will fall apart if I take time off, worrying what others think or how we are perceived, lack of agency, guilt. It's very important to take these signs seriously when you notice them and get help. Ignoring smaller symptoms paves the way to bigger syndromes. Do you see yourself or anyone you know in the stories that I've shared? Please let us know, and I'll moderate the chat. So now we're going to look at some options and some ways to mitigate burnout symptoms by building resilient practices that help to preserve our values, our energy, and our time. The first things that need to be removed from that overflowing capacity cup can be those high expectations, the perfectionism, and the demands that we place on ourselves. I asked my respondents what they did to lessen their symptoms of burnout. Looking at the list, we can see each of their answers reflects a relationship to their values, energy, and time, or any combination of the three. The core of most answers also reflects a learning to accept limitations, giving ourselves a break, some space to excuse ourselves from being perfect in every realm, and give ourselves permission to make mistakes or even fail. This will save us from bigger, more catastrophic failures and mistakes over time. It's also important to recognize what we can and cannot control or influence. This helps us to manage the expectations of ourselves. My research has led me to suggest 5 and give ourselves permission to make mistakes or even fail. This will save us from bigger, more catastrophic failures and mistakes over time. It's also important to recognize what we can and cannot control or influence. This helps us to manage the expectations of ourselves. My research has led me to suggest 5 key practices for managing burnout symptoms based on the interviews I've conducted and the resilience literature I've consulted. Number 1 is accepting support from others. Number 2, ruthlessly prioritizing self-care. Number 3, adopting a time-first mindset. 4, setting goals and finding solutions. Number 5, keeping our humor. As a coach, I've seen firsthand the transformative power of these practices to improve the satisfaction we have with our lives. Each of these strategies also contain that necessary balance between values, energy, and time. These are among the many, many valuable strategies that we can practice every day to help us cope, to build resistance, and to enjoy our lives. Asking for support from others is not a sign of weakness. Support, which can extend beyond our family and friends, gives us fresh infusions of problem-solving ideas to replace the stale ones we may have become stuck with. It encourages us to stick with overcoming the roadblocks in our lives. Support offers emotional release from pent-up feelings and provides reassurance that we're not alone in this world, which can affirm our belief in ourselves. In these ways, support from others acts as a buffer against the harsh impact of adversity. Respondents have benefited from accessing professional help through employee assistant programs at HR and third-party programs, seeing their GP or medical consultants, having counseling with psychological specialists such as CBT-trained counselors, having executive or life or career coaching, employing a personal trainer, or enjoying alternative therapies. Self-care is dedicating time to what brings you satisfaction. When we do more of what we like, we feel more calm and happier. We need to ruthlessly prioritize our self-care. And this involves so many different things on a very individual basis, exercise being one of the key self-care activities. Because it boosts endorphins and active adrenaline, it reduces negative cortisol steroids, which can help us improve our emotional feelings. It helps people take a break from excessive ruminating, and it boosts physical resilience. And spending time in nature has been shown to have positive benefits to mental well-being. So take opportunities to exercise outdoors. It's funny, data shows that junior employees and women feel that they can't ask for the time off that they need, an hour to make lunch for the kids, etc. So managers need to communicate to their employees that it is okay, preferable even, to ask for the time we need. Curiosity is an interesting thing. Lack of curiosity can dull and degrade the activity of our brains. Neuroscientists have proven that the brain structure actually changes from moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day. Brain structure is not static, but rather it's highly plastic. And like the muscles in our bodies, brains can be strengthened or weakened depending on how we use them. That means that each of us has the power to change the structure and function of our brains. And something that's very dear to me is writing reflection. Take 20 minutes to write about your feelings about events. Either do it daily, do it weekly, if that's all the time you have. When I was burning out, it really helped me to identify what it was that I wanted to change. Psychologists I interviewed recommend writing reflection to help us cultivate objectivity, which helps us to separate emotional response from fact, and to articulate the meaning of feeling and events to ourselves, and to help us set boundaries. It's not selfish to focus on our own time management, and social scientist Dr. Ashley Whillans has made it her life's work to prove it. Whillan asks what our default for making decisions is. Are we time-driven or money-driven? She's researched senior managers in 88 countries and has proven that a time-first attitude predicts happiness. People who are time affluent spend more time serving their communities and socializing and have better quality social relationships. As a result, they serve themselves better. So how do we adopt a time-first mindset? By setting boundaries, first of all. Ask always, is this good for me? Do I want this? And if not, try not doing it. It applies to working with people that drain your energy. Create gaps in your daily diary. One way is to take 30 minutes every morning to do something for yourself, to exercise, to read, but do it not on a device. Maintaining boundaries or allocating a room to work can help manage some of the stress associated with working from home. Putting leisure into our calendars as individuals, but also as organizations, is important. Our productivity is a very personal thing, but it also takes place at the organizational level. So managers need clear communication about their expectations around time, forms, policies for asking for more time, and, for example, expressing to their teams that they don't expect response to their emails sent out of hours. Our constant connection to technology leads to time confetti. And while that sounds like something fun, it seriously gets in the way of our me time. Bridget Schutt is the author of Overwhelmed: Work, Love, and Play When No One Has the Time. Schutt coined the term time confetti to show how work media distraction undermines our leisure activity, pulling us out of the present moment with family and friends into work. And we have to transition from work to home again and again. Distraction makes us feel less productive, which increases our dissatisfaction. Time confetti creates goal conflict. For example, in one fixed moment in time, we are either an individual, a partner, a parent, an employee, etc. We can't be in two places at once, so we need to be more in control of our time to achieve our goal. For this to happen, we need to develop self-control. Self-control entails directing our minds and behavior towards achieving our goal and limiting the impulses that stand in the way of achieving it. Self-control is fed by self-belief. We need to believe in ourselves before we can exercise self-control. So how do we build our self-belief? By setting and achieving goals. It sounds like a conundrum. Setting and achieving goals, even on a daily routine, can be helpful to restore our sense of control and competency. Learning new tasks or skills such as through cooking, gardening, DIY, creative pursuits that allow our self-expression can boost well-being. But make sure that some of your goals are challenging, because our self-belief is not likely to shift if we feel underwhelmed by easy goal achievement. Each time we achieve a goal, we gain more confidence in our abilities. We do what we say we are going to do, and that feels good. And I think this is important to bear in mind when we're talking about how to avoid feeling overwhelmed in the present. We can find balance in the present and future by carrying out daily tasks that keep our lives running smoothly while setting time aside to work on activities that aren't immediately important, but they will be if they're neglected, like completing a QBR with statistics compiled across the quarter. But instead of viewing setbacks, mistakes, failures as what's wrong with me, exercises in self-condemnation, self-belief encourages us to see them as an inevitable part of life that provides us with valuable opportunities for learning and development. Most of us can learn to be better problem solvers, and I'm definitely in that camp. There are many psychology and coaching models to help us as we frame our goals and work towards finding a solution. And here are a few. Many of us have seen ABC, that's the activating event, belief, consequence model. It's the underpinning of cognitive behavioral therapy and coaching. It holds that by changing our beliefs, we can improve the way that we respond. ABCDE is an evolution on that model that adds disputing your negative belief and identifying the effective new approach. SMART goals, most of us who have been in planning sessions are familiar with. And ADAPT, which is an interesting one, where it's a problem-solving model that asks us to experiment with what we think is best in the situation. So identifying our attitude, defining the problem, looking for an alternative solution, planning the consequence, and trying out the new solution. Each of these models is designed to help us to separate emotion from fact, so we can take initiative based on what we think is best in the situation. They help us to see the areas in which we have control and where we don't. Acknowledging the areas in which we have control and where we don't helps us to establish a sense of perspective and not take ourselves and our ideas too seriously. Humor is one of the few and easiest ways to bring pleasure to both sides, those dispensing it and those receiving it. Humor can help diffuse tense situations and bring a sense of solidarity to the challenges that both sides are facing. Laughter triggers the happy hormones and suppresses cortisol, the stress hormone. It increases blood flow and it's a muscle relaxant. Laughter triggers, a 4-year-old laughs 300 times a day and a 40-year-old only 300 times every 10 weeks. That's very sad. And so it helps us to find the funny in our lives. So I challenge you to find the funny by mining our lives. Notice the absurdities of our world. What would an alien find illogical? Truth is comedy's beating heart. Finding ways to laugh through hardship reminds us that we are in control of our heart and our mind, whatever darkness lies behind the door. And that's a triumph. So many bitingly funny memes have come out of our response to the pandemic, as we point out the absurd in order to gain perspective. I love this one by British comedian Michael McIntyre, who's playing both himself and the clairvoyant he visits in July 2019. The psychic's words seem like gobbledygook to him at the time, but they ring all too true as of March 2020. We need our humor more than ever. Whether we laugh with someone sitting 2 meters apart from us or across a screen, laughter boosts our feel-good factor and strengthens our emotional bonds. With all the limitations and uncertainty of our global situation, humor is a lifeline. When asked what advice he'd give others facing burnout, one of my respondents answered, "I'd tell them to step back and reflect on the bigger picture of life's priorities." I heard this in one form or another from each of my respondents and from the resiliency literature. Today, we've done just that. We've taken a step back together to honor the bigger picture by discussing the realities of work-life integration, especially during COVID, people's firsthand experience of burnout, key practices to mitigate burnout by improving our work-life balance, and some strategies for developing our resilience in darker times. After all of this, What's the one thing that you'll change in the next 24 hours? Remember to nominate an accountability partner to help you implement this change. So, whether you are a manager who's deciding to reward their employee for hitting targets or KPIs by giving them time off, which has been proven to increase success of the team, or you as an individual identifying that you need to take a holiday or have device-free weekends or look for a new role or join a football league, I wish you every success in achieving more satisfaction, more time, and less stress in your work life. We're playing it for the long game. Thanks to all of the people who shared with me for this talk or provided literature, inspiration, or support. And thank you for taking 20 minutes out of your day to spend with me.
Hello, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here with you today virtually. I hope that this talk finds you and your loved ones healthy. First of all, it's a difficult time that we're living in. My name is Antigone. I'm physically based in the Netherlands, where I work for a Dutch bank called ING, and I am leading the technical implementation of robotics and intelligent automation there. In the next 20 minutes, we're exactly going to talk about robotics and intelligent automation. And we are going to try to answer the question of, are we able to adapt and support the change that robotics and intelligent automation are bringing in the future of work? When we talk about future of work, most of us have one thing in mind, that's jobs. Also myself, when I think about future of work, I think about my job, and I'm pretty sure that my mom and my dad and my cousin, my friends, think about the same. Am I going to do the same job that I do today, even in the future? How am I going to keep myself relevant for this job? And what will happen with the automation that is coming? Is it going to automate also my job? I am a 90s kid, and this makes me automatically part of this millennial generation. You know what they say for millennials. They say that they always try to find a purpose in their job, and they get bored pretty easy. But we still try to find a purpose in it. We try to find a meaning in it. And this expression from Confucius, even though it dates from the 6th century BC, it is now more relevant than ever. It says, choose a job that you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. For me, this was particularly interesting because I was really passionate about what I was doing. I have a technical background, I have an engineering background, and this is me in my first job. I had a couple of jobs before, but I thought that this job would be my dream job. I started at this position as a software engineer in the same company that I work today. And there were a lot of things that I liked about this job. As a software engineer, my purpose was to build solutions, to write code and to design solutions for our clients and for the software that we were providing them. And little did I know that after a while ago, I found myself in the dream job, just like this ostrich. There were a lot of things that I liked about it, but also there were a lot of things that I disliked. And some of the things that I liked, or I loved actually in my job, were writing code. I really loved it. Solving problems, doing analysis on the issues that we had, discussing new ideas with colleagues and how we can do things better, more innovation involved, and how we can offer better solution to our clients. And I learned a lot of stuff while working, of course, from my colleagues and a lot of trainings that we did. And in general, it was great to work with software solution. We are automating things, we are bringing new ideas, and we are putting these ideas into implementation. It required a lot of critical thinking, especially when something was going wrong. we were trying to find a solution to it. But in the same time, every day that I went to work, there was this data that I had to enter to a different system. There were requirements that I was receiving by emails, and I literally had to copy paste them to the system that we were using as user requirements. Or there were data that we were receiving from one system, and we had to copy paste them to another system because the systems do not talk to each other. And this included a lot of routine tasks, a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of administration. Just around building software, there is a lot of administration, believe it or not. And also there is a lot of step-by-step instruction that was involved there. I do not hate IKEA step-by-step instruction, they are great, but I do hate 30 steps of a process that I have to do 3 or 4 times per day. And this, for example, includes testing the GUI of a solution that we have built, just like a user does, just going there and clicking the same buttons all over again to see the output. And I also hated long meetings. I still haven't found a solution for it, but I'm still searching. But for the rest of the things, I try to critically think about what can I change about it, because I believe this is what I like to do. Think how we can improve things. And I didn't want to give up on my dream job. I still loved it, and there were a lot of things that I liked about it. And what I did is go there in our internal intranet and see how are other people dealing with the things that they dislike in the job. Am I alone disliking these kind of things? What I found out is that in ING, we have an army of robots. Now, I had never seen an army before, especially an army of robots. And I had seen some robots going around in ING for bringing coffee or for accompanying employees to different meetings or clients who were visiting. They were showing the office. But I never seen an army of robots around. And, you know, an army of robots sounds like something very futuristic, something coming from the future, something to see in the movies. And I thought something like this. I went out to investigate. I talked to a lot of colleagues, and I went to see this army of robots that we have in ING, and it looked something like this. This picture is 3 years ago. Now things have changed. Everything is running in cloud. But back then, this is how robots used to work 24/7 and help ING employees to automate their routine tasks. And I went on with my interest for robotics. I found it super interesting. I actually did a lot of training, and then I also got a bot for myself. I built the first robot myself, and nowadays I just did a switch from my current job, from my previous job to my current job, which is the technical lead of robotics. And today in robotics, what we define as a bot is a virtual employee performing a set of repetitive tasks by mimicking actions of a human being. This means that a robot is actually a physical, it's a physical bot, but a bot is seen as a script. How this script looks like is something like this. These are step-by-step instructions put into place by another human being, just like you and me. And this is what makes a bot exist. Just this instruction put into script together. And if you think about your tasks, your daily tasks, what would make them good candidates for automating, good candidates to be carried out by a bot, is exactly answering the question, is this task easy to explain with step-by-step instruction to somebody who has no idea about the process that you're doing? So if you explain your task to me today in the steps, really good explained, and there is no logic required for them whatsoever, will I be able to carry out the same task? If I am able to carry out your task, then a bot can do that too. Today in ING globally, we have more than 1,000 bots deployed, and they are helping more than 10,000 employees globally. And I am one of these 10,000 employees, and bots have helped me to move away from tasks which are routine, predictable, consuming, and basic. Examples of these are, indeed, as I mentioned, that entering data that you receive from emails to a system, data from one system to the other, doing background checks, doing different, having a list of items you need to verify, doing tests of GUI of interfaces, and classifying emails. You know, when we all go in the morning to work, we have these 100 unread emails. These bots were classifying those to me into different categories. And what I have more time to focus on is in tasks that I find that are innovative, creative, value-adding, and challenging. I know that this sounds pretty much cliche, but what I like to do now is design solution, see a process and see what can we improve to this process, how we can do things better for ourselves, and a lot of discussions with colleagues and a lot of decisions and ideas on how we can do things better and how we can play around with new technology and how we can do what we do better. And this is relevant not only for my job. Yes, I do work in automation, but this is relevant for all kinds of jobs. I'm pretty sure that we can do things better, whatever things that we do. And most of all, what automating the routine tasks and tasks that were really time consuming helped me with is connect with colleagues, connect with people in my workplace and now virtually, on not complaining about the things that we hated, but actually thinking critically and thinking about new ideas that we can implement. In order to test the trust that our employees who are working with bots have in them, we carry out surveys time to time. It is very interesting to see how the trust that employees and colleagues, bots colleagues, have in bots is increasing over time. And recently we have done this survey, and the questions asked were, do you trust that the bot deployed will carry out the tasks that you do correctly for you? These are tasks that were automated and bots have proven to their results, have proven to be right or wrong. Sometimes they also fail. And what we see now is that 72% of the employees do trust the bot. Of course, trusting in a script that you haven't seen or a script that you don't understand because you're not an IT expert can be difficult. But it is really good news to see that this trust is increasing. On the other hand, but in the same light, we have put the other question. Do you believe that the bot will carry out your whole job for you correctly? And only 10% of the people believe that their job can be fully automated. So only 10% of the people believe that they are carrying out routine tasks, that they are carrying out tasks that do not require any logic, and those tasks can be automated. But what we do in our job is very often more complicated than that. We have to take decisions, we have to deal with this new situation. And of course, bots are becoming smarter. They are able to interpret information of different sources, of different nature and different forms, but in the same time, they are not able to deal very well with new situations, because this is what we humans, this is how our brain processes information, and this is how we deal with this new unknown situation before. And in the COVID times, in this pandemic, the whole world was faced with new situation. So this pandemic found the world a little bit in chaos, to not say a lot in chaos, when government were taking different decisions, nothing was aligned. There was decision that was taken from one day to the other, and enterprises had to react fast. We all had to react fast. The employees of different companies were sent home to work from home from one day to the other. The infrastructure was not fully ready for that. And we as a bank, as ING, besides dealing with this situation internally, we also had the responsibility to be there for our clients, because we are their trusted partner. We have to be there for them in all situations, and especially when they need us most. And this is how we were faced with this situation when we had a super huge amount of credit requests because the pandemic also put a lot of pressure in the financial system. So a lot of companies of small and medium enterprises came to the bank asking for credits or for loans. So we were not prepared for it. We had our employees working from home. We had a team, which was a standard team, and we were not prepared with this peak of new requests in a time that the uncertainty was so high. The team came to ask us for help, and we had to react quick. What we were asked for is to automate some of the tasks which are involved in the process of approving a credit. So we were not about automating the whole thing. Of course, the judgment is still taken by an employee because a bot cannot do that. We cannot decide who deserves a credit or not. But what a robot can do is check out different requirements in different systems, do background checks, check credit limits, check the history of payments, and so on and so forth. A lot of tasks that can be automated. So this is what we did. We started out with small tasks that could be automated, and they would help the employees dealing with this huge number of requests in such a difficult time. And we had to do this quickly. We had to create these virtual employees working together with other human employees who were also working virtually. It was a great example of how the whole thing played out. Bots were deployed immediately. There was no extra training required for the bots. Of course, there was a lot of energy put to build the bot, but they could then easily scale up or down based on the volumes of requests incoming. And the good thing about this is that we were able to keep our clients happy. We're able to respond to them in such a difficult time within the service level agreement, because this is what we do best. We are there for our clients. And the times of COVID-19 have shown most of all that tools like robotics, like automation, like AI, and different automation tools are going to be there for us, but we have to use them wisely. And in a time that different tool, the technology is there to help us with, what we need to do most is to bring more humanity to work. Having empathy and communicating with colleagues is what will keep us all together in this, being open to change and bringing change. This is what is going to keep us up and running for making this change happen. Otherwise, without the critical thinking of how to deal with this situation, without the creativity of building a solution for this situation, we would not have a solution to it. And of course, it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of openness for this change, and it requires a lot of energy for learning new things, and adaptability and agility to react to this change and to get used to this new situation. It is what we need most. And my advice to you after this talk, or when you have some time, think about, if you had more time at your work, what else could you do in your role to make things different, to make things better? How would you improve your working life by doing things differently? What other tasks would you do if you were not stuck in between the routine tasks? And by thinking about that, also think, what skills would you need to make this change happen? What skills would you need to improve? What things would you need to do things differently? Do you have those skills? And if you don't have those skills, why not acquire some new skills? Also, in the same time, another question, very important, is what is your employer looking for? What skills are there in the market that are needed? What skills are needed for your job? And in the light that you see it, because you are the expert of your job and you know better than anyone else what skill is there needed to carry out this job better. If you are looking for a place to start with from tomorrow to make things differently, what would you do? My first advice would be to read your company's digital strategy. We live in an era of technology. All companies do have a digital plan for them, for the coming future. And the coming future is now, is in 1 year, is in 5 years. Just be prepared for it. Just be aware of what is there to come. And by being aware of what is to come, you can also prepare yourself by following relevant trainings. By thinking about how you can improve your own role, you can follow those trainings that you need, and you can be the change maker to make this happen. Being a change maker, you not only support the change, but you are actually facilitating this change. And by facilitating this change, you keep yourself one step ahead on this. You keep yourself in the game by bringing new ideas to the table and making things better, by improving things, and by helping your company move ahead with their digital strategy. In any case, whatever you choose to do tomorrow, most and for all, it is very important to be human. Only humanity can bring us to the future of work. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to today's session. I really hope you're enjoying the Women in Technology World Series so far. I'm Rebecca Little and I'm the Head of Strategy, Planning and Operations here at Ericsson. And today's session is called Who Do You Think You Are? And actually the clue's in the name. Who do we think we are, and what are our personal brands, and how can they help us develop our career paths and identify new opportunities for us by leveraging our own personal brands. Branding is the most powerful weapon we have in such a cluttered marketplace of people and businesses that we're competing with. So I wanted to share with you today some of the top tips that I've experienced and some of my peers have experienced around personal branding. When we think about brand, we as humans consider who we trust the most for a given topic. So for example, if I was to launch my music career, who would I go to out of these key big brand and personalities? Well, I'd probably go to a Simon Cowell or will.i.am or Justin Bieber, and probably wouldn't go to a Michelle Obama. So the point is, how do we let everyone else around us, our colleagues, our peers, our managers, our potential managers in the future, our customers, know what it is we want to be known for? And therefore, they come to you first when they consider a new job opportunity or a new solution that they're looking for. Trust is built through the awareness of what it is you're good at, of course, but also there's lots of elements that come across in a personality and a brand when you're building it. Everything down to the way that you look. So Lady Gaga, for example, she's very famous for grand designs of her clothing and her shoes and the way she looks. will.i.am, for example, in his glasses, and even Simon Cowell. If I said to you, name a music mogul that's known to be British, very opinionated, and wears high trousers, within those three things, you'd know straight away I was talking about Simon Cowell. Little elements that build up our own brand. But where does this all start? Well, it actually starts from such an early age. Who of you in the audience have children maybe between 3 and 5 years? I do. Well, nearly. She's actually only 2, but very close to that. If you ask a classroom of children who it is the most strongest at that 3 to 5 years, they'll all put their hand up and say, yes, I'm the strongest. If you ask the same question of a group of 7-year-olds, they would all point at one of them in the group. So from an early age of 7, we're already identifying the values that people have and weighing up how much you trust that person, whether they're good or bad at something, what their strengths and weaknesses are. Such an early age. So from early on, we're already starting to network and evaluate who's the right person to go to for a given, if you're a boy is you're trying to get to know a boy, then who would you be go to, who is popular in the group, or who's the strongest that you would go and consult, or if you had a problem, who was it you would go to. Such an early age that we're starting to do that. But it's also such an early age we start to have a bit of imposter syndrome. And it's widely reported that imposter syndrome is one of the big silent career killers, they call it. And that's because it's this inner fear that we can't do something, that we can't look to achieve more because we're an imposter. We don't really know what we're doing. We're just lucky to get this opportunity. It's some of the things that play on people's mind, and particularly women, actually. A study has shown that women are much more likely to have imposter syndrome. And it's recorded that 75% of professionals regularly feel like imposter syndrome has held them back in taking an opportunity or a career move or developing in some way. And so the way to combat that imposter syndrome and that nagging doubt in the back of your mind is to really understand one's strengths and weaknesses. What are your superpowers, the things you're really good at? And a good way of doing this is, I don't know if you've heard of Marcus Buckingham. He has a great assessment tool, and I think he's doing some free of charge assessments at the moment on his website, so worth checking it out at the moment during COVID. I know that there's some assessments available. But it's a way of really understanding what you really excel at. What are the things that you do really, really well and to a very high standard, and those things that you don't really actually are not necessarily weaknesses, but things you're not as strong at. So, for example, it could be that you're fantastic at developing software and actually you could do it in an instant with a short brief, whereas actually you might not be so good at standing up and presenting in big audiences. It's identifying those things that you get a buzz out of and thrive on doing versus those things that keep you awake at night and actually it's the last thing at the bottom of your list that you don't really want to get round to doing, or you'll find a way of not having to do it for some reason. And it's really important that we understand that of ourselves so that we invest the time in improving some of those areas maybe that we don't feel are strong, or actually just avoiding those things that and focusing your time on the things that you do really, really well. But this is part of, again, building up what you want to be known for and your brand. By understanding your strengths, you can then build up a perception of being known to go to. For example, if you are a software developer and you develop applications, then you want to be known for that. And by understanding what it is you're really good at, you can then leverage, share with the world what it is you're great at. And a good way of doing this is considering the reason everyone pays. And this is Rob Brown, actually. He's got this great theory around the reason why everyone pays. And it's not necessarily money. It could be if you're a salesperson or if you own your own business, but it's also the reason why everyone pays attention to you in the first place, and really understanding why somebody would come to you if they had an application they wanted to develop, or if you were a great designer, to come to you and design a concept for a new branding campaign. And it's a great way to consider how you build up your brand then. But our brand then breaks into skills, interests and values at the end of the day. And so buy from people, and they want to understand the humanness element behind the name or your personality from a job perspective, your job title. They want to get to know what it is you stand for personally as well, and the things that you enjoy doing, so that they can relate to you on a human level. So for me, my skills are in digital marketing, and actually perception and branding, online reputation management, brand was something that I studied for 5 years actually, in getting my master's degree in digital marketing. So it's great for me to come and have an opportunity to talk to you about it today, and in these scenarios. We all have busy lives and we have lots going on, and it's great to take the time to go and speak to you all about this. and a great way for me to continue to develop my skills in digital marketing. But also I enjoy kickboxing. I actually have done it for the whole of my life since I was 3 years old, and it's something I really love to do because it pushes me to the limits, and I love to push myself to the limits professionally and try new challenges and try new opportunities and continue to develop my skills. But I do also, in a personal perspective, enjoy doing that from a kickboxing as well. And the fact that I do kickboxing means I meet so many very dedicated, career-minded people. So it's great to meet people that are on the same wavelength as me. But also when I speak to genuinely people on a day-to-day basis, they also have their own sports and hobbies and run. Some people love to run. Anyone that's involved in any sort of martial arts and running and sports then can relate to me, and we see that we can have something in common. And this isn't just from a personal career development that people like to build brands. It actually is quite lucrative. The likes of Zoella and Elfie are actually in the Hall of Fame in Madame Tussauds and have waxworks of themselves. They're on the rich list, the world's rich list. You can make a lot of money out of building a very strong brand, as these two have, using video blogging and being relatable. But how do we stand out amongst all of this noise is a big challenge. There's over 2 million blogs a day. How do we actually stand out? Well, the bigger the brand, the more you get paid. And again, not necessarily in monetary terms, but also paid attention to you. So I thought it would be worthwhile sharing a couple of top tips on how to do that. But the first thing, as I mentioned, is understanding your strengths. What are your superpowers that you want to be known for? So it's just taking a little bit of time, just jotting down what it is you want to be known for. Do you want to be known for building that application, or do you want to be known as the most creative person to come to bring a story to life? And as part of that, it's understanding then how you want to take that brand out to your audiences. Who is it that really care about this? Do you want to build a brand that's going to help you develop a career within your own company that you're at the moment? Do you want to be looking for new opportunities at a different company? Or is it new customers that you want to drive to? By just jotting it down, as with anything, if you put the plan on paper, the plan comes to fruition. So spend a little bit of time jotting down, what are your goals with your brand? What do you want to achieve? Do you want a new job? Do you want to grow your business? Who are your audiences that you want to go out to? What are your unique selling points? And what is it you want to be known for? And then visually, is there any visual identity that you want to drive? Do you want to be known for wearing the wacky shirts or mad hair colours? Or what is it that you can do that makes you stand out? Tip number 2 is raising your profile. Do bold things like this. Stand out of your comfort zone and come and do speaking, go and do speaking opportunities where you can. Network as much as possible. Use social and digital platforms to leverage your brand, whether it's across LinkedIn and using the new functionality with LinkedIn Stories, for example. Who of you have tried that so far? It's a great way to just get some snapshots of humanness across again, a bit about you and your personality and in a quick shot. Maybe you'd like to start a vlog and start putting your opinions across on a particular topic, or a podcast. Maybe lots of people are listening to podcasts and more, and that's growing rapidly at the moment, and it's an easier approach to vlogging by just having the sound, much more easier to edit and adjust and do things around. So worth considering. So yeah, be bold, raise your profile as much as you can. Be brave, and don't always have to do things that everybody else is doing. Sometimes it's absolutely fine to do something completely different that you're not used to doing, whether that is creating a whole new video montage of things that you've been doing. Like one of my friends at the moment is documenting travels in a camper van, and that's actually really helping her grow her a freelancing business in copywriting because she's getting a huge new following of people and reaching new audiences that she never would have imagined. Think of different things that really stand you out, and it's often the oddities, we call them, that do make you stand out. You know, something that's completely different in a picture than what you're used to will make it stand out. And think about some of those. Be brave with it and confident. But most importantly, be authentic. There's nothing worse than trying to be something you're not, because it's not sustainable. It won't come across well. So it's just be authentic, be yourself, and you'll see some huge successes. So yeah, that's it from me in terms of building personal brand, leveraging those opportunities for you to get to know more people, networking, be brave, take those opportunities to stand up in front of audience, and most importantly, just be yourself, because that's the way that it will come across so much more authentic, and people will action. So I'll be online for some live chat and answering questions now. Feel free to post your questions in the chat box, and look forward to having the discussion with you. I really hope each of you have taken one thing away that you'll do